Rocker John stood on Sheffield station platform just after dawn, leather hold all over one shoulder, status quo blasting through his headphones, and a grin on his face wider than the snake pass. He thought to himself, San Francisco, here we go. John was travelling first class. None of that cramped nonsense today. This were business. Serious business. As the train rattled west towards Manchester Airport, John settled into his seat, cracked open a can of Boddingtons, and unwrapped a warm sausage roll absolutely drenched in tomato sauce. Now this, he muttered proudly to nobody in particular, is international travel done proper. A businessman opposite glanced over at 7:15 in the morning. John simply raised the can and nodded. By the time he reached Manchester Airport, Rocker John was already in top form. Inside the lounge, he headed straight for the bar where a pint of Old Peculiar appeared before him like divine intervention. Rocker John thought to himself, better use time wisely. I got this gig partly due to my experience and knowledge of the San Fran bar and beer scene. I'd better do some learning, and I'll Google the #1 beer in California. Soon enough it was time for the long-haul flight to San Francisco. Business class naturally. As Rocker John settled into his seat, a cheerful Irish flight attendant approached carrying a bottle of Moet.
Mr. John, would you care for a glass of Moet champagne before departure?
John looked at the bubbling flute for a second before politely shaking his head. Any chance of a Guinness instead, love? The attendant burst out laughing.
I had a feeling ye might say that.
Minutes later, a fresh Guinness arrived at his seat. Now we're talking, John smiled. Throughout the flight, he became something of a celebrity among the cabin crew. Between pints, meals and stories about Sheffield Wednesday, smoked barbecue and classic rock, the Irish attendants kept stopping by for another chat. One asked him what business he was in. John leaned back seriously. Global hospitality relations. Sounds important. It is when there's pubs involved. As the plane crossed over the Pacific and the lights of California finally appeared beneath the clouds, John straightened his Blue For You t-shirt and looked out of the window. San Francisco, lad. A couple of hours later he emerged through arrivals at San Francisco International Airport where two familiar figures waited beside a chauffeur holding a sign reading, "Does anyone fancy a pint?" Pint stood there in sunglasses and a grin, while Aussie Mozza waved enthusiastically. "Hey up, Rocker!" shouted Pint. "How was flight?" John adjusted his bag confidently. "Right grand. Guinness were acceptable." The three of them burst out laughing before climbing into the waiting black limousine. As the limo swept away towards the glowing skyline of San Francisco, Pint cracked open the minibar. "To international business, he declared. "To pints," added Aussie Mozza. Rocker John tried some of Aussie Mozza's too, is new he had packed with him. Pete mentioned that the beer review isn't until 2 p.m. tomorrow. "Rocker John," said driver. "Tut pub, please."